All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at mobile devices and apps, but we're going to be doing it a little differently.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at it through the lens of a university course
Interesting.
on mobile computing.
Oh, cool.
And specifically, we're going to be using the course's introduction document as our source material.
Looking forward to it.
So, this is going to be a really fascinating look at what students need to know in order to thrive in this really fast-paced world of mobile technology.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is such a crucial and constantly changing field.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what this course is emphasizing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really jumped out at me right off the bat was this statement by the professor. This course teaches you how to learn, not to know.
Oh, wow. That's a bold statement. I like that.
It's a pretty provocative way to kick things off.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of adaptability, right? Like, mobile technology is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So it's not just about memorizing facts and figures.
Right.
It's about developing that mindset of continuous learning.
Exactly. Like, you can't just learn one thing and expect to coast on that for the rest of your career. You've got to constantly be updating your knowledge.
Picking up new skills, absolutely.
Yeah, and it seems like this course is really embracing that philosophy.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
So, let's jump into some of the specifics here.
Okay.
The source material starts off by talking about the whole landscape of mobile devices.
Right.
You know, everything from phones to tablets.
Tablets, yeah.
It even mentions PDAs, which are kind of a blast from the past.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
I know, right? Like, it makes you realize just how much this technology has changed.
In such a short time.
Yeah, in just a few years. What was once cutting edge is now practically ancient history.
That's true.
But it's important to note that a lot of the core principles from those early devices are still relevant today.
Absolutely. Those foundations are still there.
Yeah, and the source material really emphasizes that we're living in what they call an information and data-based society.
Right. And that mobile devices are at the center of it all.
Exactly. They're our constant companions, our gateways to this flood of information.
Yeah, they're how we connect,
data,
communicate, work, play, everything.
Yeah, and I think for anyone entering this field, it's crucial to understand both the capabilities and the limitations of these devices.
Absolutely.
Because they're not perfect.
Right.
They have their strengths and weaknesses.
For sure.
And we'll be diving into some of those.
Okay, yeah, looking forward to that.
As we go along.
Great.
But first, let's kind of peek under the hood.
All right.
And look at the core components that make up a mobile device.
Let's do it.
So, we've got the processor.
Yep, the brain of the operation.
The memory.
Essential for storing data.
The screen.
The window to the digital world.
And all the different input methods.
Right, how we interact with the device.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. We're kidding around these tiny little computers in our pockets and purses.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
And they're capable of so much. So, let's start with the processor.
Okay.
Which, as you said, is kind of like the brain of the device.
It handles all the complex calculations.
Right.
Makes everything run smoothly.
But I've always wondered, are mobile processors as powerful
great question.
as the processors we find in our desktops and laptops?
So not quite. They're designed a bit differently.
How so?
Well, mobile processors have to be much more energy efficient.
Right, because of battery life.
Exactly. So they often make trade-offs in terms of raw processing power.
I see.
To conserve energy.
So it's like a balancing act.
Exactly.
Between performance and portability.
You got it. Developers have to be really mindful of this when they're creating apps.
Makes sense.
They have to optimize their code to run efficiently on these less powerful processes.
And sometimes that might mean compromising on certain features or graphics.
Exactly. They might have to scale things back a bit.
That makes sense.
But it's all part of the challenge.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these constraints actually drive innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, moving on to another crucial component.
Okay.
No mobile device would be complete without an operating system.
The software that makes it all tick.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything.
Yes.
And the source material. Sort of gives a nod to the dominant forces in the mobile OS world.
Yeah.
Which are, of course,
Android and iOS.
Right.
The big two.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how these two operating systems have really shaped the landscape.
Oh, yeah, they've had a huge impact.
Of mobile technology.
Absolutely.
And they've taken very different approaches.
Very different, yeah.
Android, being open source,
right,
has fostered this really diverse ecosystem of devices and apps.
A very open and collaborative environment.
While iOS has really prioritized that tightly controlled user experience.
They have a very specific vision.
Yeah, and both approaches have their pros and cons.
Definitely.
But before we dive deeper into that, I wanted to ask you about this whole open source concept.
Sure.
Because it seems really crucial to understanding Android's success.
It's been a key factor.
So, for those who might not be familiar, can you break down what it means for an operating system to be open source?
Absolutely. So, open source basically means that the underlying code of the operating system is freely available for anyone to use, modify, and distribute.
So, it's like a collaborative effort.
Yeah, exactly.
From a global community of developers.
It's a very community-driven approach.
And that's led to a huge amount of innovation.
A ton of innovation.
Even in Android world, right?
Absolutely, because developers can take that base code and customize it, create their own versions of Android for different devices.
So it's like a constantly evolving, branching out kind of a system.
Exactly. And that's been both a strength and a challenge for Android.
In what way?
Well, on the one hand, it's led to an incredible diversity of devices and apps.
Right.
But in the other hand, it can sometimes create fragmentation and compatibility issues.
I see.
Because you have all these different versions of Android floating around out there.
That might not always play nicely together.
Right, exactly.
So it's like a trade-off, right? You get this incredible innovation.
Yeah.
But you also have to deal with the potential for things to get a little messy.
That's a good way to put it.
But it seems like overall, the benefits of open source have outweighed the drawbacks for Android.
For sure. It's been a key part of their success.
And I think it's also really interesting to look at the history of mobile operating systems.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating to see how things have evolved.
Yeah, because it wasn't always Android and iOS.
Right. There were so many other players.
Battling it out in the early day.
Like a whole graveyard.
Yeah. Well, like, where did all those other operating systems go?
Right. They couldn't keep up.
What happened?
Well, a lot of them just couldn't keep up with the pace of innovation, or they failed to attract a critical mass of users. And without that momentum, it's tough to survive.
It's a reminder that even giants can fall. In the tech world.
Yeah, nothing is guaranteed.
So what do you think are some of the key factors that determine whether an operating system succeeds or fails?
Well, the source material points to a few things. User experience is huge. If people don't enjoy using the OS, are not going to stick around.
Right.
Developer support is crucial, too. You need developers to create apps to make the platform attractive.
That makes sense.
And, of course, marketing muscle. You need to get the word out there.
Yeah, you got to let people know that your OS exists.
Right.
And why they should care.
Exactly. But I think perhaps the most important factor is adaptability. The ability to evolve, to meet changing user demands.
To dissipate future trends.
Yeah, because technology never stands still.
It's constantly moving.
And if you're not moving with it, you're going to get left behind.
So it's like a race to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
And Android, it seems, has been very successful.
Very successful.
At doing that. So let's dive a little deeper into Android specifically. Because this course seems really keen on getting students familiar with its inner workings.
It makes sense. It's a dominant platform, so understanding how it works is essential.
And the source material talks about Android's architecture, which is essentially how it's structured.
It's like the blueprint of the system.
And it breaks down this architecture into these distinct layers.
Right, each with its own specific purpose.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a layered cake, right?
I like that analogy.
Each layer builds upon the one below it, and they all work together to create this seamless and functional platform.
It's a really elegant design.
So let's take a bite.
Okay, let's do it.
Out of this layered cake.
I'm hungry for knowledge.
So the top layer is the application layer.
Okay.
And this is where all those amazing apps that we use every day.
The stuff we interact with directly.
It's the face of Android.
Yeah, good way to put it.
The part that we see and interact with.
Exactly.
But there's a lot happening beneath the surface.
Oh, yeah. A whole lot going on.
So what's the next layer down?
So beneath the application layer, we have the framework layer.
Okay.
And this is where things start to get really interesting for developers.
How so?
Well, the framework layer provides developer with a set of pre-built tools and components.
Okay.
It's like a toolbox for building apps.
I see.
It allows them to focus on creating unique functionalities without having to reinvent the wheel.
So it streamlines the development process.
It really does.
And ensures some level of consistency across different apps.
Exactly. It provides things like activity management, location services, access to hardware features, all these essential building blocks for a functional app.
And this is where students really start to dig in.
Yeah, this is where the real learning happens.
Yeah, because understanding how this framework layer works is crucial for building effective and engaging Android apps.
Absolutely. It's the foundation upon which they'll build their skills.
And it's fascinating to think about how these different layers interact and how decisions made at one level can impact the others.
Right. It's all interconnected.
It's like a delicate ecosystem.
Yeah, very internet system.
Where everything has to work in harmony to create that seamless user experience.
Exactly. And that's what makes Android development so challenging and rewarding.
It's like solving a puzzle with all these moving parts.
Yeah, you got to see the big picture.
But when you get it right, it's incredibly satisfying.
It really is.
So we've talked about the application layer and the framework layer, but what lies beneath this crucial framework layer?
So beneath the framework, we have the runtime and library layers.
Okay, and these provide...
So the runtime layer is like the engine that powers Android apps. It includes things like the Delvik virtual machine, which actually executes the code, and some core libraries that provide essential functions for apps to operate.
So it's the environment.
Yeah, think of it as the stage where the code performs.
Okay.
Make sure everything runs smoothly.
Makes sense.
And then alongside the runtime, we have the libraries layer.
Okay.
And this is where things get really fun.
Oh, how so?
Well, the libraries layer offers this vast collection of pre-written code for common tasks.
So things like...
graphics rendering, database access, networking, all sorts of things.
Wow. So it's like having this massive library of prefabricated parts that developers can just grab and use?
Instead of having to write everything from scratch.
That seems incredibly efficient.
Oh, it's a huge time saver.
Yeah. And it probably helps with consistency.
Absolutely. And reliability, too.
So... it's a win-win for every.
Yeah, definitely a win-win.
Okay, so we've got the application layer, the framework layer, the runtime and libraries layers. What's at the very bottom?
Okay, so at the very foundation of the entire Android system, we have the Linux kernel.
The Linux kernel?
Yeah, and this is the heart of it all.
Okay, so what does it do?
Well, the kernel is responsible for managing all the hardware resources, like the processor, the memory, the storage. Think of it as the bridge between the software and the physical device itself.
So it's like the conductor of the orchestra, making sure everything works together in harmony.
Exactly. And for students, understanding this layered architecture isn't just about memorizing a diagram. It's about grasping how each layer interacts, how the decisions made at one level impact the others, and how to leverage this knowledge to create effective and innovative apps.
So it's about seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And understanding the interconnectedness of the system.
It's all connected.
Yeah. And I think that's a really valuable takeaway from this whole exploration of Android's architecture.
For sure. It gives you a much deeper appreciation for how things work under the hood.
And how everything fits together.
Exactly. And that's what makes Android development so fascinating.
It's not just about writing code. It's about understanding the whole system.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach.
And I think that's a really important mindset for students to develop.
Absolutely, because it's not just about this one platform. It's about understanding the principles that apply across different technologies.
Yeah, and that's what makes this course so valuable, I think.
I agree.
It's not just teaching students about Android. It's teaching them how to think.
Exactly. How to approach problems.
About technology.
How to learn and adapt.
And that's a skill set that will serve them well.
Absolutely.
No matter what field they end up in.
It's transferable knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we often overlook in education.
It's about more than just the specific facts.
We get so caught up in the content that we forget about the process.
The process of learning itself.
Yeah. And this course seems to be doing a really good job.
Yeah, I'm impressed so far.
Of striking that balance.
It's a good sign.
Between content and process.
For sure.
And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, me too.
So we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, just getting started.
In this world of mobile computing.
There's always something new to learn.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes it so captivating.
It's a constantly evolving field.
Yeah, it's always changing.
Which keeps things interesting.
And challenging. But in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Definitely keeps you on your toes.
So let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll dive even deeper.
Looking forward to it.
Into the specifics of Android app development. All right, sounds great.
And how this course is preparing students to create the next generation of mobile apps.
Awesome. Can't wait. So, picking up where we left off.
Right. We were just about to delve into the nitty-gritty of Android app development.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. And how this particular course is equipping students with the skills to actually create these apps.
To bring their ideas to life.
Exactly. So, the source material outlines 3 main objectives for the course.
Let's hear.
And they are, first, utilizing mobile tech in this, information-driven society.
Right, which we talked about earlier.
That's the context. Then grasping the principles of mobile technologies.
Yeah, so the foundations, the theory.
Yeah, and finally, Android app development proficiency.
The practical application.
So it's like a 3-pronged approach.
Yeah, I like it.
To really giving students a well-rounded understanding of this field.
It's a good approach.
And how these objectives connect.
Yeah.
Is really interesting because the first one kind of sets the stage, right? It acknowledges that we live in this world that's just saturated with information.
We're drowning in it.
And mobile tech plays a central role.
It's at the center of it all.
In how we access and interact with all of that information.
Absolutely. So students are challenged to think about how these devices are shaping our lives and how to harness their potential.
Responsibly.
Exactly.
So it's like setting the context.
Yeah, like laying the groundwork.
Before diving into the technical details.
That makes sense.
And then the second objective really gets into those technical foundations, like understanding how mobile devices and operating systems work.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and grasping the principles of software development.
So like coding and all that.
Yeah, and also exploring the design philosophies behind successful apps.
Okay.
So it's like the how and the why
behind
the technology, which I think is really important.
Absolutely, because it gives you that deeper understanding of how things work.
And empowers students to become creators.
Instead of just passive consumers, which is the goal, right?
And that leads us to the third objective, which is
Android app development proficiency.
Yeah, so now armed with this foundational knowledge and this broader understanding of the societal context.
The big picture.
Students can actually start putting their skills into practice.
Right. Time to get their hands dirty.
And building real-world apps.
That's where the magic happens.
And the source material highlights that this course offers a really rich blend of learning experiences. So it's not just lectures and readings.
Oh, that's great to hear.
There's also hands-on lab activities.
Awesome.
And this culminating final project.
Oh, a final project. I love it.
Where students actually get to build their own mobile app.
That's so
from scratch.
That's the best way to.
And this project is really the heart of the course.
It's where everything comes together.
Yeah, it's where students get to synthesize all of the knowledge they've acquired and demonstrate their ability to think critically, problem solve, and create something truly innovative.
That's like their masterpiece.
It's their chance to shine.
I love it.
And it's not just about technical proficiency.
It's more than that.
The source material emphasizes that students also need to think about the user experience, the design principles, and the needs of their target audience.
So they're not just building an app in a vacuum.
Exactly. They have to think about who's going to be using it and why and how they can create an app that truly meets those needs.
It's all about the user.
And that's what makes this course so valuable.
It's a holistic approach.
It's preparing students for success on multiple levels.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not just giving them the technical skills. It's also giving them the design thinking mindset and the ethical awareness to really thrive in this ever-evolving world of mobile app development.
It's about the whole package.
And it goes beyond specific skills and knowledge.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about cultivating this passion for learning, a hunger for innovation.
I like that.
And an appreciation for the power and responsibility that comes with shaping the digital landscape.
Because with great power comes great responsibility.
And I think that's a really powerful message for students to take away.
It's a good lesson for everyone.
From this course.
Absolutely.
So one thing I was curious about, the source material, mentions mobile devices quite a bit.
Right.
But it doesn't really go into detail about their specific characteristics.
Like the hardware specs?
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
That's interesting.
It seems like understanding the nuances of different devices would be beneficial.
It would be, for sure.
For developers.
Yeah, because you have to think about things like screen size, processing power, memory, limitations. All those factors can impact how an app performs.
Exactly. And an app that runs flawlessly on a high-end smartphone might struggle on a budget device.
Absolutely. So developers need to be aware of those differences.
So maybe the course assumes...
Yeah, maybe it's assumed knowledge.
That students already have a basic understanding of hardware.
Yeah, that's possible.
But it's definitely something that they should explore further.
Absolutely. They should dig deeper.
Their own.
Yeah, because understanding that interplay between hardware and software is crucial.
It's all connected.
Exactly. It's all part of being a well-rounded mobile app developer.
And speaking of being well-rounded,
the
document also emphasizes that we live in this information and database society.
Right. We've touched on that.
And what implications does that have?
Yeah, good question.
For aspiring mobile app developers.
Well, it means that they have a responsibility to consider the societal impact of their creation.
It's not just about building cool apps.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
It's about building responsible apps.
Exactly.
That consider the broader context.
The ethical implications.
Yeah, and that's a really important point.
It is, because mobile devices are no longer just gadgets.
Right.
They're powerful tools that shape how we live our lives. They influence how we access information, how we connect with others, how we navigate the world around us. So developers are essentially shaping the very fabric of our digital lives. And that's a huge responsibility. It is, and it's something that developers need to be mindful of.
Absolutely. So what are some specific considerations?
Okay, so some key things to think about.
Yeah.
Data privacy is huge. Mobile apps collect so much information about us.
Right, like our location?
Yeah, our browsing habits, our contacts, our preferences, everything.
A lot of data.
It is, and developers need to be transparent about what they're collecting, how they're using it, and how they're protecting it.
Right, because users are essentially entrusting their data to these apps, and developers have a responsibility to handle it ethically and responsible.
Absolutely. It's like a social contract.
Yeah, a bond of trust.
Built on transparency.
Exactly.
And it goes beyond just data privacy, too.
Okay.
Developers should also think about the potential for bias in their algorithms.
Right, because algorithms aren't inherently neutral.
They can reflect the biases of their creators.
That can have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. So it's something to be very aware of.
Yeah, and it's not just bias. Developers also need to think about accessibility, making sure their apps are usable by people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Accessibility is crucial.
And then there's the whole issue of mental health and well-being. Like, how can apps be designed to promote positive mental health?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Instead of contributing to things like addiction.
Right, or anxiety.
Or FOMO.
Yeah,
all those things.
Don't to consider.
It is. It's a lot of responsibility.
It's like that Spider-Man quote.
Oh, yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And developers have a lot of power.
They really do.
Shaping the digital world.
And they need to wield that power wisely.
Absolutely. And I think this course does a great job of introducing these ethical considerations early on.
So students are thinking about these things right from the very beginning.
From the start.
That's as important.
So let's circle back to the specific knowledge and skills. This course is aiming to impart the source material, lays out 3 key objectives.
All right.
Utilizing mobile tech in an information-driven society.
Right.
Grasping the principles of mobile technologies. and achieving Android app development proficiency.
So the theory and the practice.
Yeah, and how these objectives connect is really interesting. The first objective sets the stage, right? It acknowledges that we live in this world where information is everywhere.
It's all around us.
And mobile technology is how we access it, how we interact with it, how we share it. So it's like giving students that big picture view before diving into the technical stuff.
The details.
And then the second objective gets into those technical foundations. How do mobile devices work? What are operating systems? What are the principles of software development?
Yeah, all the essential building blocks.
And then, of course, we have the third objective, which is where students actually get to put all of that knowledge into practice by building real Android apps.
That's the culmination of everything.
It's like their graduation ceremony from passive learner to active creative.
You get to build something from the ground up.
And that's an incredibly empowering experience.
It is, because it shows you that you can take what you've learned and apply it to create something real, something tangible.
And that's a feeling that's hard to beat.
It's really rewarding.
So I think this course is doing a really fantastic job.
I agree.
Of preparing students for the world of mobile app development.
It's giving them the tools they need.
Yeah, and it's not just about the technical skills. It's also about the mindset,
the attitude,
the ethical awareness.
All of it.
And I think that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach.
So for anyone listening who might be interested in this field, I think this course is a great example of how to approach mobile app development education.
Good model.
And it shows that it's not just about learning to code. It's about so much more than that.
It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Yeah. It's about thinking critically, problem solving, being creative, and being responsible.
Absolutely, because technology is a powerful tool.
And it's up to us.
Right.
To use it.
Well, great.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of mobile computing.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has, and I hope everyone listening has learned something new.
And maybe even been inspired.
To create the next generation of mobile apps.
The future is in your hands.
So, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Dive deep.